Hi, my name is Whitney Glenn, and I am doing a presentation on the monitor hypothesis. So the monitor hypothesis was first presented in 1982 in Principles of Practice in Second Language Acquisition by Stephen Krashen. There are 5 hypotheses about second language acquisition, and the monitor hypothesis has to do with learned language, such as grammar, vocabulary, and applying these things to language that has been acquired naturally. So this is where the two intersect. So presented by Krashen, who is an American linguist who's been studying language since the late 70s and has since published more than 525 articles and books on bilingual education, second language acquisition, literacy, and is an activist for bilingual education. So the monitor hypothesis is where acquired language and learned language intersect. So the monitor function is where the practical use of learned grammar is used when communicating. Acquired languages passes through the internal monitor, or a monitor is an editor, to be checked or corrected before it's communicated. And the conditions necessary to use the monitor are sufficient time. So the student needs to be able to think about the rules that they have learned. They have to focus on the form. They have to know whether it's correct or not, and they have to have knowledge of the rules in order to do any of that. There are 3 ways the monitor can be expressed. There's the monitor overuser, who uses the editor often. They often correct mid-utterance, and this inhibits fluency. It can be helpful with writing because there's more time to focus on grammar and editing, and people that are overusers tend to be more introverted or have a personality that's more introverted. Monitor underusers, they rely on their acquired knowledge. They speak fluently with a feel for what's correct. So they either prefer not to use their knowledge consciously, or they don't have that background, or they don't have the learned knowledge to use the monitor. And their personalities tend to lead toward extroverted. The optimal monitor user is the pedagogical goal, and they know when to use the monitor appropriately, and they don't let it interfere with communication. So when you're thinking about the overuser and the underuser in the classroom, and it's difficult to decide who would be the better student or deserve a higher grade. Is it the one that's the risk taker with their communication? They participate and add to the conversation, but they don't always convey the information grammatically correct? Or should the one who is more reserved in their communicating, but when they do communicate, they get it out perfectly, more deserving of a higher grade recognition? So critiques of the monitor hypothesis were proposed by Kevin Gregg and Barry McLaughlin. They both challenged the ideas that Krashen put forth. So Gregg questions the use of the monitor for production only. and not for comprehension. He acquired language is learned through example and having it mean something to you. So when you're learning something like grammar, that can lose its appeal quickly and not be embedded in memory. Um, it's not you. Krashen proposes it's not used for comprehension, but Greg would disagree with that. Um, and he believes it can't be used under normal circumstances. So, like in having a conversation, rather, it's more for the classroom. Barry McLaughlin thinks speech is rule governed. So, his idea is that if speech was only acquired, speakers would throw words out and make no sense ever. So, he challenges the idea that children are superior to adults at second language acquisition because of their lack of monitor. But he contests that adults do learn second languages well, and they have they have control and knowledge of language and linguistic properties, so they are at an advantage. So to apply the monitor in the classroom, you can teach grammar or assess grammar, how you deem necessary, but you can use it sparingly or minimally. So, because grammar is not that helpful in developing fluency, and it can be an effective strategy for long-term memory because grammar rules are rarely contextual or meaningful. So even if they are practiced and drilled and gone over and over again, they can be quickly forgotten. A good way to check for understanding is to pose a question to the entire class and expect a choral response. So if you the volume and speed in which the class answers could be a good indicator of general comprehension. You can also use the monitor hypothesis when assigning essays. It's a good time for students to use their acquired knowledge of language to edit themselves and take the time to do that. And editing, going back and looking at work they've done before and editing again can also be a good use of their internal monitor. So, monitor over users. I thought Moises may not be the perfect example, but I think his response to the teacher when she questions him might be how an overuser feels when they're trying to communicate because they are inhibited by their monitor. So I'm going to skip to that and we can think about that for a second. So, poor Moises. And then to conclude, I just wanted to put this up here. The best methods are there for those that supply comprehensible input in low anxiety situations containing messages that students really want to hear. So that's how Krashen feels about people learning language. They don't force early production in the second language, but allow students to produce when they are ready, recognizing that improvement comes from supplying communicative and comprehensible input and not forcing correct production. So the monitor is an effective tool and can be used by students to correct their own grammar and their own language that they are delivering, but it's probably not best for us to correct them in the moment, but to model behaviors that they can acquire from us. So the question I want to ask you is, what are the conditions necessary to use the monitor, and which SEI strategies that we've been working with over the semester can be used for students to apply the monitor in the classroom, and also feedback on this presentation. So I thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something new. Okay, bye.